The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds sat in their assigned seats. The air buzzed with different languages and the soft hum of translation devices. Today felt like any other day of endless meetings and boring votes. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood up from the human section. Her movement was slow and careful. Every eye in the massive room turned to look at her. The tall woman with short gray hair had been Earth's voice for 15 years. She never spoke unless it was important. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Sarah began. Her voice carried clearly through the hall's speakers. I stand before you today to deliver a message from the United Earth Government and all human colonies. Chancellor Morden of the Zephyrians tapped his crystal fingers on his desk. The sound made a musical note that meant he was bored. His species looked like tall, thin birds made of living glass. They thought they were the smartest beings in the galaxy. Effective immediately, Sarah continued. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Union. We are ending all treaties, all agreements, and all cooperation with this council. The hall exploded into noise. Beings jumped from their seats. Some shouted in anger, others laughed. The Corvan delegate, a creature that looked like a walking tree, made a sound like wind through leaves. In his language, it meant good riddance. Sarah waited for the noise to die down. She had expected this reaction. For too long, this council has treated humanity like dangerous children. You watch our every move. You limit our growth. You tell us where we can live and how many ships we can build. Because you are dangerous, shouted the Altarian representative. The blue-skinned woman stood up, her forearms waving in the air. Your species fights wars for sport. You solve every problem with violence. Sarah's face stayed calm. We fight when we must. We protect what matters to us. This council calls it violence. We call it survival. The Zephyrian Chancellor spread his crystal wings. The gesture meant he wanted to speak. Ambassador Chen, surely we can discuss this. Humanity has been a valued member of our union for 50 years. Valued? Sarah's voice got harder. You voted to limit human population growth because you fear us. You put watchers on every human ship because you don't trust us. You denied our request to explore the Outer Rim because you think we're too aggressive. Dr. Veltar, a smaller Zephyrian sitting near the Chancellor, made notes on his data pad. He studied alien behavior for a living. The human's body language told him she was completely serious. This was not a threat or a bargaining move. The humans really meant to leave. The Outer Rim is dangerous, said the Mantis delegate. The insect-like being's translator made his clicks and buzzes sound like an old man's voice. Those dark regions of space hold unknown threats. We protect you by keeping you away. Sarah almost smiled. You protect yourselves. You're afraid that if humans find something dangerous out there, we might actually fight it instead of running away. The accusations hurt because they were partly true. Most council species had evolved past the need for violence. They solved problems with talking, trading, and careful planning. War was something primitive species did before they learned better ways. Humans were different. Even after joining the galactic community, they kept their armies. They built warships that other species thought were too powerful. They talked about honor and duty and protecting the innocent. It made the advanced species uncomfortable. We have given you peace, the Chancellor said. His crystal body glowed brighter with emotion. Before the Council, your species fought each other constantly. We brought you into a civilized galaxy. You brought us into a cage, Sarah replied. A beautiful, comfortable cage, but still a cage. She pulled out a data pad and began reading from it. In the past 5 years, the Council has rejected 47 human proposals for expansion. You have blocked 32 human research projects. You have removed human patrol ships from border regions 18 times. The list went on and on. Each item was small by itself. Together, they painted a picture of a species being slowly strangled by rules and oversight. Every human ship must carry a council observer, Sarah continued. Every human colony must report its population monthly. Every human military exercise requires council approval. No other species faces such restrictions, because no other species has your history of violence, the Altarian shouted again. Sarah finally showed emotion. Her eyes flashed with anger. Our history of violence? We have fought exactly 0 wars since joining this council. We have attacked exactly 0 council members. We have broken exactly 0 major treaties. She was right, and everyone knew it. Humans had been model citizens for 50 years. They followed the rules, paid their dues, and sent aid when disasters struck other worlds. But the fear remained. You patrol the border. Regions with heavy weapons, the Mantis delegate clicked. You maintain armies that could conquer small systems. You practice war games that simulate attacks on council worlds. We patrol the borders because pirates and raiders attack peaceful traders, Sarah shot back. We maintain armies because the galaxy has real threats in it. We practice war games because being prepared for danger is not the same as causing danger. Dr. Veltar watched the exchange with growing interest. The humans had tried to explain their position many times before. Today felt different. Today they weren't asking for understanding. They were saying goodbye. Sarah looked around the great hall one last time. This council has spent 50 years trying to turn us into something we're not. You want us to be peaceful like you, to talk instead of fight, to retreat instead of advance, to watch evil happen and do nothing about it. She paused, letting her words sink in. But that's not who we are. We don't start fights, but we finish them. We don't look for trouble, but we don't run from it either. And we won't apologize for being the kind of species that stands between darkness and light. The human delegation began to stand. There were only 30 humans in the vast hall, representing billions of their species across dozens of worlds. With them rose a few other beings, the Terran-aligned species who had become close allies of humanity over the decades. You make a mistake, the Chancellor said, his crystal body dim with worry. The galaxy is safer with the Council's guidance. Structure brings peace. Rules prevent war. Sarah gathered her things slowly. Maybe that's true for your species, Chancellor. But humans need room to grow. We need the freedom to explore. We need the right to defend ourselves and others without asking permission first. The human group walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet of the hall. No one tried to stop them. No one called them back. At the doorway, Sarah turned around one last time. We leave you with this warning. The galaxy is bigger and more dangerous than you think. There are threats out there that don't care about your rules or your peaceful ways. When those threats come, you'll wish you had allies who know how to fight. The massive doors closed behind the humans with a sound like thunder. For a long moment, the hall stayed quiet. Then the voices started again. Most were happy. Some were worried. A few were thoughtful. Dr. Veltar made one final note on his data pad. The humans have left us. I fear we may come to regret this day, but his voice was lost in the celebration. The galaxy's most troublesome species was gone. The Council could finally govern in peace. 6 months had passed since the humans left the Council. At first, everything seemed normal. Trade continued between worlds. Diplomatic missions carried out their work. The great machine of galactic government kept running smoothly. Then the reports started coming in. Commander Zix of the Altarian fleet read the latest message with growing alarm. Another merchant convoy had been attacked near the Kepler sector. The pirates had taken everything valuable and left the ships drifting empty in space. It was the 5th attack this month in that region alone. Where are the patrol ships? Zix asked his aide. a young Altarian with bright blue skin. "The nearest council patrol is 3 days away, sir," the aide replied. "Should we send our ships to investigate?" Zix hesitated. Altarian ships were built for exploration and trade, not fighting. They had some weapons, but nothing like the heavy guns that human ships carried. The pirates knew this. They had grown bolder since the humans stopped patrolling the outer systems. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Zix decided. "Request additional patrol ships for the Kepler sector." The aide's face showed doubt. "Sir, Fleet Command has received over 200 similar requests this month. They say there aren't enough ships available." That was the problem. The Council had always relied on human ships to handle the dangerous patrol work. Human vessels were fast, heavily armed, and crewed by people who didn't back down from a fight. Other species preferred to avoid conflict whenever possible. On the other side of Council space, General Krex of the Corvan Empire studied star charts in his war room. The old tree-like being had served his people for over 3 centuries. He understood opportunity when he saw it. "The humans are gone," he told his staff officers. "Their patrol routes are empty. Their early warning stations have been abandoned." His second-in-command, a younger Corvan with bright green bark, leaned forward. "What are your orders, General?" "We test the boundaries," Krex said. His voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Small moves at first. See how the Council responds." For years, the Corvan Empire had wanted to expand into Council space. Rich systems with good farming worlds lay just across the border. But human ships had always been there, watching and waiting. The humans had a reputation for fighting first and asking questions later. It kept ambitious empires honest. Now those ships were gone. Dr. Veltar sat in his laboratory on the Zephyrian homeworld, surrounded by screens showing data from across the galaxy. As the Council's chief expert on alien behavior, he had access to reports that worried him deeply. Pirate attacks were up 400% in the outer systems. 3 minor wars had started between species that had been peaceful for decades. The Corvan Empire was moving ships closer to Council borders. Worst of all, several colony worlds had simply stopped responding to communications. His assistant, a young Zephyrian named Sylvan, brought him the latest reports. "Doctor, the situation is getting worse. The Council Military Command is asking for more ships, but most member species don't have warships to spare." Veltar's crystal body flickered with patterns of light that showed his distress. "We made a terrible mistake, Sylvan. We thought the humans were the problem, but they were actually the solution." He pulled up a star map showing human patrol routes from before their departure. The routes covered all the dangerous border regions where pirates liked to hide. They protected trade lanes that billions of beings depended on. They watched for signs of trouble from aggressive empires and dangerous phenomena. "Look at this data," Veltar said, highlighting sections of the map. Human ships prevented an average of 15 major incidents per month. Pirates, raiders, territorial disputes, even natural disasters. They were everywhere we needed them to be. Sylvan studied the information with growing understanding. The humans weren't just patrolling, were they? They were actively hunting down threats before those threats could become serious problems. "Exactly," Veltar confirmed. "While we saw aggression, they were practicing prevention. They stopped wars before they started by being too dangerous to attack." The data painted a clear picture. Human ships had been doing far more than simple patrol work. They investigated suspicious activities. They chased off raiders and pirates. They positioned themselves between potential enemies and peaceful worlds. Most importantly, they did all of this without being asked. Other Council species waited for problems to develop before responding. Humans looked for problems before they happened. It was a fundamental difference in thinking that the Council had never fully understood. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Thorne of the Council Defense Fleet reviewed the same data with growing frustration. The tall, gray-skinned Centaurian had been a professional soldier for most of his life. He understood military reality better than most council members. "We need to increase patrols in the outer systems," he told his staff. "The pirate attacks are getting out of hand." His tactical officer, a multi-armed being from Rigel, made calculations on her screen. "Sir, we would need to triple our patrol fleet to cover the routes the humans used to handle. Most member worlds don't have ships available for extended patrol duty." Thorne knew she was right. Council fleets were designed for defense and emergency response. They could protect specific worlds or respond to known threats, but they couldn't maintain the kind of aggressive, wide-ranging patrols that humans had specialized in. "What about hiring mercenary fleets?" suggested his communications officer. "Too expensive," Thorne replied. "And most mercenary groups are barely better than the pirates they would be fighting." The truth was becoming clear to military professionals across council space. Humans hadn't just been members of the galactic community, they had been its immune system. Their willingness to fight had prevented hundreds of small problems from becoming major disasters. Now those small problems were growing into big ones. In his private office, Chancellor Morden of the Zephyrians met with his top advisors. The Crystal being's body was dim with worry as he reviewed reports from across council space. "The Corvan Empire has moved 3 battle fleets to our border," reported his military advisor. "They claim it's for training exercises, but our intelligence suggests otherwise. Pirate attacks have increased by over 300%, added his economic advisor. "Trade is down significantly as merchant fleets refuse to use the outer routes. And we've lost contact with 5 colony worlds in the past month," finished his science advisor. "Long-range sensors show no signs of major disasters. The colonies have simply gone silent." Morden's crystal wings drooped with exhaustion. "What do our military experts recommend?" "They want permission to contact the humans," his military advisor said carefully. "Ask them to resume patrol duties in exchange for some kind of compensation." The suggestion hung in the air like a poison cloud. Asking the humans for help would mean admitting that the Council had been wrong. It would mean acknowledging that humanity's aggressive behavior had actually been protecting everyone. "Not yet," Mordoun decided. "We can handle this ourselves, increase our own patrols, ask member worlds to contribute more ships to the defense fleet." His advisors exchanged worried looks but said nothing. They knew as well as he did that most Council species couldn't spare warships for extended patrol duty. They had built their societies around the assumption that someone else would handle the dangerous work, that someone else had always been humanity. As reports of new problems arrived hourly, Dr. Veltar made a disturbing discovery in the Council's historical archives. Deep in the classified files, he found references to something called the Vanguard. The records were old and incomplete, but they spoke of an ancient threat that periodically emerged from dark space. The last mention of the Vanguard was over 50,000 years ago, but recent deep space sensor readings showed massive energy signatures moving at the edge of known space. Something big was stirring in the darkness between galaxies. Veltar tried to access more detailed records, but found that most files about the Vanguard were restricted to the highest levels of Council security. What he could read made his crystal body flicker with fear. The humans had found something 3 years ago, a derelict ship of unknown origin in the deep void. They had studied it extensively and filed a report with the Council about potential threats from outside the galaxy. The Council had classified the report and forgotten about it. After all, humans were always seeing threats where none existed. Now, as the galaxy grew more dangerous by the day, Veltar wondered if humanity's warnings had been more important than anyone realized. The first colony to die was Epsilon Reticuli Prime. It had been a peaceful farming world with 2 million inhabitants from 3 different species. When the communication stopped, the Council sent an investigation team, Captain Nara of the Centaurian. Fleet arrived at Epsilon Reticuli 3 days after the last transmission. Her ship's sensors found something impossible, The planet was still there, still spinning in its orbit, but it was wrong. "Captain," her science officer reported, "I'm reading massive energy discharges across the planet's surface. No life signs, no intact structures. It's like the entire world has been harvested." Nara stared at the images on her screen. Cities that had stood for centuries were gone, leaving only smooth depressions in the ground. Mines had been carved deeper than any known technology could manage. Even the oceans looked different. Their mineral content completely changed. "What about the people?" she asked. "No bodies, Captain. No graves. No signs of violence. They're just gone." The investigation team spent 3 days on the surface. What they found made no sense. Every piece of technology had been removed. Every metal structure had been taken apart and carried away. Even the underground mineral deposits had been extracted with surgical precision. But there were no weapons marks, no blast craters, no signs of a battle. The planet had been stripped clean by something with technology far beyond anything the Council possessed. When the team returned to Council space, their report caused panic among the leadership. Chancellor Morden called an emergency session to discuss the findings. "Could this be the work of an unknown species?" asked the Altarian delegate. "Possible," replied Admiral Thorne. "But the technology required would be centuries ahead of our own, and the precision suggests artificial intelligence rather than organic beings." Dr. Veltar had been studying the data from Epsilon Reticuli for days. The patterns reminded him of something from the ancient archives. "Chancellor, I need access to the restricted historical files. I believe this may be connected to the Vanguard." The mention of that name made the chamber fall silent. Most council members had never heard of the Vanguard, but those who had knew it from legend and nightmare. "The Vanguard are myths," said the Mantis delegate. "Stories told to frighten children." "No," Veltar said firmly. "They are real. The archives contain reports from over 50,000 years ago, a machine intelligence that sweeps through the galaxy every few millennia, harvesting resources and organic life for unknown purposes." He activated his presentation system showing images from the ancient files. Massive ships that looked like geometric nightmares, worlds stripped bare and left lifeless, entire species that vanished without a trace. According to these records, the Vanguard enters our galaxy from dark space, follows a pattern of systematic harvesting, then disappears again for thousands of years. The cycle has repeated at least 7 times in recorded history. The chamber erupted in worried discussions. If Veltar was right, they faced a threat that had destroyed countless civilizations across galactic history. How do we fight them? Admiral Thorne asked the question everyone was thinking. Veltar's crystal body dimmed. "According to the archives, most species don't. The Vanguard technology adapts to counter any weapons used against it. Their ships repair themselves, their strategies evolve in real time. By the time you understand how to hurt them, they've learned how to stop you." More colonies began disappearing over the following weeks. Tau Ceti 4, Wolf 359 Colony, New Rigel Station. Each time, Council ships arrived to find the same thing: perfectly harvested worlds with no signs of their former inhabitants. The pattern became clear to Dr. Veltar as he studied the attack sites. The Vanguard wasn't choosing targets randomly. They were following ancient star charts, moving systematically toward the galaxy's most populated regions. "They're not just harvesting resources," he explained to the emergency council session. "They're gathering intelligence. Each world they take gives them more information about current galactic civilization. Then we need to evacuate the threatened systems," suggested the Corvan delegate. Even the aggressive tree beings were frightened by this enemy. "Evacuate to where?" Admiral Thorne asked. "At their current rate of advance, they'll reach the core. Systems within 2 years. We can't evacuate half the galaxy." That's when the first direct encounter happened. The Council battle fleet Magnificent was patrolling near the Vega system when long-range sensors detected massive objects approaching at high speed. Admiral Thorne himself commanded the fleet of 12 ships representing the best military technology the Council possessed. "Contact established," reported his communications officer. "The objects are artificial, massive. I'm reading energy signatures, unlike anything in our databases." On the main screen, the Vanguard ships appeared like something from a fever dream. They were enormous, each one larger than a space station. Their hulls seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Strange energies crackled between geometric formations that hurt to look at directly. "All ships, battle stations," Thorne ordered. "Prepare to engage." The battle lasted 4 hours. The Council ships fought with everything they had. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, even experimental plasma torpedoes. Nothing worked. The Vanguard ships absorbed or deflected every attack. Worse, they learned from each assault. Weapons that caused minor damage the first time became completely useless after. The third shot. The enemy technology adapted faster than the Council could change tactics. When it was over, the Magnificent was the only Council ship still intact. Thorne had ordered a retreat after watching 11 ships destroyed without causing any visible damage to the enemy. "They're not just machines," he reported to the emergency council session. "They're intelligent in a way we can't comprehend. Every time we hit them, they immediately developed a counter. It was like fighting an enemy that could read our minds." The council faced a terrible truth. They were completely outmatched by an enemy that had awakened after 50,000 years of sleep. Their weapons were useless. Their strategies were meaningless. Their technology was primitive compared to what they faced. That's when Dr. Veltar made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in the restricted archives, he found a human report filed 3 years earlier. The report described the discovery of a derelict ship of unknown origin in deep space. The humans had studied the technology extensively before reporting their findings to the Council. The ship was Vanguard. "The humans found one of their scouts," Veltar explained to Chancellor Morden in a private meeting. "They spent months analyzing the technology. Look at their conclusions." The human report was detailed and technical. It described Vanguard weapons, defensive systems, and construction methods. More importantly, it outlined potential weaknesses and suggested countermeasures. "They tried to warn us," Veltar said, his crystal body glowing with realization. 3 years ago, when they found the derelict, they filed a complete report about the potential threat. The Council classified it and forgot about it. Morden reviewed the report with growing horror. The humans had identified the Vanguard threat years before it manifested. They had proposed joint research projects to develop countermeasures. They had requested permission to increase military readiness and expand patrol routes to watch for signs of Vanguard activity. The Council had denied every request. They had called the humans paranoid and aggressive. They had filed the report away and forbidden further research into dangerous alien technology. "We need to contact the humans immediately," Morden decided. "If anyone has a chance of fighting this threat, it's them." But when the Council tried to reach human space, they discovered another problem. The humans had withdrawn completely. Their former embassy buildings were empty. Their communication frequencies were silent. Even their allied species claimed no knowledge of current human activities. Earth still existed, but it had gone dark. No messages came out of human space. No ships entered or left human territory. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from the galaxy. As more Council worlds fell to the Vanguard harvest, panic spread across civilized space. Refugee fleets clogged the space lanes, carrying survivors from destroyed colonies toward the safety of the core worlds. But that safety was an illusion. The Vanguard advance continued, steady and unstoppable. Their ships had grown in number, as if each harvested world provided materials for more vessels. The geometric nightmares now numbered in the thousands, spreading across the galaxy like a plague of metal and energy. Dr. Veltar spent his days calculating trajectories and attack patterns. The math was simple and terrifying. At their current rate of advance, the vanguard would reach the major population centers within 18 months. Unless something changed, galactic civilization would end not with a bang, but with the quiet efficiency of perfect machines harvesting everything in their path. The only hope lay with the species the Council had driven away, the aggressive, violent, dangerous humans who had tried to warn them years ago. The same humans who had vanished into the dark just when the galaxy needed them most. In the depths of space, ancient machines continued their work, following programming older than most species in the galaxy. They had awakened to find a rich, populated galaxy full of resources to harvest and intelligence to absorb. Chancellor Morden stared at the holographic display showing the vanguard advance. Red markers indicated harvested worlds. Yellow showed systems under attack. Green represented worlds still safe, but the green area was shrinking by the day. 1/3 of Council space was gone. "Sir," his aide whispered, "the evacuation fleets from the Centauri sector have arrived. They're requesting permission to land refugees on Zephyria Prime." Morden nodded absently. Millions of beings from dozens of species were fleeing toward the core worlds. The infrastructure couldn't handle the massive population movement. Food was running short. Medical facilities were overwhelmed. And still the refugees kept coming. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked Admiral Thorne, who stood nearby studying tactical reports. 47 vessels capable of combat operations," Thorne replied. "Down from 306 months ago. The vanguard learns our tactics after every engagement. Our weapons become useless within hours of first contact." The situation was hopeless, and everyone knew it. The Council had thrown everything they had at the advancing machine intelligence, advanced warships, experimental weapons, coordinated fleet actions involving multiple species. Nothing worked. Each time they fought, the vanguard ships analyzed their attacks and developed perfect counters. Energy weapons that worked once never worked again. Kinetic projectiles were deflected or absorbed. Even nuclear weapons seemed to have no effect on the strange, flowing hulls of the enemy ships. "There is one option," Dr. Veltar said quietly. He had been standing in the corner, reviewing data on his personal screen. "We could ask the humans for help." The suggestion fell into the room like a stone into still water. The ripples of shock and dismay spread across the faces of everyone present. "Absolutely not," snapped the Altarian representative. "We will not beg those violent primitives for assistance. The Council has handled galactic crises for thousands of years without human intervention." "With respect," Veltar replied, "the Council has never faced anything like this, and the humans are the only species that has successfully analyzed vanguard technology." Morden felt the weight of leadership crushing down on him. His people were dying. His civilization was ending. His pride was all he had left, and even that felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. "Draft a message," he decided. "A formal request for humanitarian assistance." The message took 3 days to compose. Every word was debated and revised. The Council couldn't bring itself to admit complete failure, but they needed to communicate the severity of the situation. The final text was a masterpiece of diplomatic language that managed to ask for help without actually begging. The human response came within hours. Admiral Jackson Torres appeared on the communication screen in his full-dress uniform. The gray-haired man had been Earth's military liaison to the Council before humanity's departure. His expression was carefully neutral. "Chancellor Morden," Torres said with a slight nod, "I've reviewed your request for humanitarian assistance. The Terran Federation is prepared to offer sanctuary to refugees fleeing the current crisis. The offer was generous but limited. Refugee camps, not military intervention. Food and medical supplies, not warships and weapons. The humans were willing to help with the aftermath, but not the cause." "Admiral," Mordoon began carefully, "we appreciate the humanitarian offer. However, the situation requires military cooperation. The threat we face may eventually reach human space as well." Torres' expression didn't change. The Terran Federation will defend human space and human interests. We are not obligated to defend worlds that chose to exclude us from their governance. The words were polite, but final. Humanity had been kicked out of the Council. Now the Council wanted them back, but only to fight and die for worlds that had rejected them. "Please," Morden said, his dignity finally cracking. "We were wrong. We admit it. But billions of innocent beings are dying. Surely that matters more than our past mistakes." Torres was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "Chancellor, the Terran Federation has been tracking the Vanguard situation since it began. We're aware of the threat level and the scope of the crisis." "Then you know we need your help," Morden pressed. "We know you need someone's help," Torres corrected. "The question is whether humanity should risk its own people to save those who didn't want us around in the first place." The communication ended without a firm answer. Torres promised to relay the Council's request to Earth's government, but made no commitments. The humans would consider the matter and respond when ready. Days passed without word from human space. Meanwhile, the Vanguard advance continued. More worlds fell silent. More refugee fleets arrived at the core systems, bringing stories of horror and loss. Dr. Veltar spent his time analyzing intelligence reports and trying to understand what the humans might be planning. His research revealed disturbing patterns in the data. "They've been fighting them," he told Chancellor Morden during a private meeting. "Look at these sensor readings from the past 6 months. The data showed energy signatures consistent with space battles in regions where no Council forces were operating. The patterns suggested hit-and-run attacks against Vanguard scouts and smaller vessels. The humans have been engaging the enemy without telling us," Veltar continued. "These readings show weapons we don't recognize, but they're definitely human in origin." Morden studied the information with growing realization. "They've been preparing for this fight while we've been losing it." "More than that," Veltar said. "The attacks show increasing effectiveness over time. The humans aren't just fighting the Vanguard, they're learning how to hurt them." The revelation changed everything. While the Council had been suffering defeat, after defeat, humanity had been quietly developing working countermeasures against Vanguard technology. The species they had dismissed as violent and primitive was the only one successfully fighting back. That's when the real intelligence reports started coming in. Captain Nara of the Centaurian fleet had been conducting reconnaissance near the former human border when her sensors picked up massive fleet movements. Ships were emerging from deep space, heading toward Vanguard-controlled territory. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "I'm reading over 200 vessels. Configuration unknown, but energy signatures are definitely human." The ships were unlike anything in the Council databases. They were larger than traditional human vessels, with strange modifications and weapon systems that didn't match any known technology. But their movement patterns and communication frequencies were unmistakably human. "Where did they get so many ships?" Nara wondered aloud. The answer came from deep space listening posts that had been monitoring the edges of human space. For the past 3 years, humanity had been conducting massive construction projects in the void between stars. Shipyards, research stations, and military installations had been built in complete secrecy. The humans hadn't just left the Council. They had been preparing for war. More intelligence flowed in over the following days. Human fleets were engaging Vanguard forces across multiple sectors. The battles were fierce, but for the first time since the crisis began, the enemy was taking losses. Admiral Torres appeared on communication screens across Council space with a message that stunned the galactic community. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began. "For 3 years, the Terran Federation has been preparing for the threat you now face. We tried to warn you. We tried to share our knowledge. You chose to ignore us." Images of the derelict Vanguard ship filled the screen. "When we found this vessel, we knew what was coming. We knew the galaxy would need defenders who were willing to fight an enemy that doesn't negotiate, doesn't retreat, and doesn't show mercy. The message continued with technical details about Vanguard weaknesses and human countermeasures, weapons that could penetrate their adaptive defenses, tactics that confused their learning algorithms, ships designed specifically to fight an artificial intelligence that could evolve in real time. The Terran Federation will defend human space, and our allies, Torres concluded. We will also assist in the evacuation of civilian populations from threatened systems, but we are not obligated to save those who rejected us when we offered to stand together. The message was broadcast to every world in Council space. It told the galaxy's population that help existed, but it might not come in time for everyone. Indeed, the depths of space. Human fleets moved with purpose and precision. They struck at Vanguard formations with weapons specifically designed to counter adaptive technology. They rescued survivors from dead worlds and escorted refugee fleets to safety. But they didn't move to defend Council worlds that had voted to exclude them. The message was clear. Humanity would fight for humanity. Everyone else would have to prove they deserved protection. Chancellor Morden faced the hardest decision of his career. The Council could continue fighting a losing war with inadequate resources and obsolete tactics. Or they could swallow their pride and formally ask to rejoin the alliance they had worked so hard to leave behind. The choice was between dignity and survival. As reports came in of human victories against Vanguard forces, Morden realized that survival was more important than pride. The galaxy needed its defenders, even if those defenders were the violent, aggressive. The final battle began when the Vanguard reached the Sol system. Earth's sun burned bright in the void as thousands of ships took position around humanity's home world. The enemy had followed their ancient pattern, working their way through the galaxy toward the most densely populated regions. They had not expected to find anyone waiting for them. Chancellor Morden stood on the bridge of the human battleship Defiance, watching the tactical display with mixture of awe and terror. The Vanguard fleet was massive beyond comprehension. Geometric nightmares stretched across space like a metallic plague, each vessel larger than a city. But the human fleet was ready. "Beginning attack pattern Omega," announced Admiral Torres from the command chair. His voice was calm, as if he was ordering lunch instead of commanding the most important battle in galactic history. The human ships moved with precision that seemed almost artificial. They struck the Vanguard formation at carefully chosen points, using weapons that tore through adaptive defenses before the enemy could evolve counters. Morden watched in amazement as Vanguard vessels actually exploded under human fire. "How is this possible?" he asked Dr. Veltar, who stood nearby monitoring the engagement with scientific fascination. "They're not using conventional weapons," Veltar explained. "Look at the energy signatures. Those are quantum disruption fields. They attack the fundamental structure of matter itself. The Vanguard can't adapt to weapons that break the laws of physics they're built on." The battle raged for hours. Human ships darted between Vanguard vessels like insects attacking giants. But these insects had stings that could kill. Every human attack caused real damage. Every Vanguard ship that fell weakened the enemy formation. Most shocking of all, the humans seemed to anticipate Vanguard tactics before they happened. Enemy movements were countered before they began. Adaptive responses were disrupted by attacks that changed faster than the machines could learn. "They're fighting like machines themselves," observed Captain Nara, who commanded a small council, force that had joined the battle. "But better machines." Admiral Torres heard the comment through the communication system. "We've had 3 years to study them," he replied. "We know how they think because we've learned to think the same way. The difference is that we can be unpredictable when we need to be." The truth became clear as the battle continued. Humanity hadn't just developed weapons to fight the Vanguard. They had developed an entirely new way of warfare. Part organic intuition, part artificial intelligence, part pure human stubbornness that refused to accept defeat. The vanguard began to retreat. For the first time in 50,000 years, the ancient machine intelligence found itself facing an enemy it couldn't overcome. Human tactics evolved faster than vanguard adaptation. Human weapons struck at levels the machines couldn't defend against. Human coordination was too complex for artificial intelligence to predict. As the last vanguard ships fled toward dark space, a strange quiet settled over the Sol system. The battle was over. The threat was ended. The galaxy was safe, but the cost of that safety was just beginning to be understood. "Damage report," Torres requested. 14 ships lost, sir," his tactical officer replied. 347 human casualties, enemy losses estimated at over 4,000 vessels. The numbers told the story. Humanity had won the most decisive victory in galactic history while suffering minimal losses. The species that other civilizations considered primitive had just saved everyone else from extinction. Chancellor Mordun felt something he had never experienced before: genuine humility. "Admiral Torres," he said quietly, "on behalf of the Galactic Council, I want to thank you. You saved us all." Torres turned to look at the Zephyrian leader. His expression was tired, but not unkind. "We didn't do it for the Council, Chancellor. We did it because it was the right thing to do." The words cut deeper than any insult could have. Humanity had risked everything to save people who had rejected them. They had fought and died for worlds that had called them dangerous. They had protected a galaxy that had wanted them gone. "I need to understand something," Mordun continued. "How did you know? How were you so prepared for this threat when we were completely surprised?" Torres was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "We found their scout ship 3 years ago. We tried to warn you then. You classified our report and told us to stop looking for trouble. So you prepared alone?" "We prepared for everyone," Torres corrected. "Every weapon we developed, every tactic we created, every ship we built was designed to protect the entire galaxy. Not just human space." Dr. Veltar stepped forward. "The patrol routes," he said with sudden understanding. "You weren't just patrolling the borders. You were watching for vanguard activity." Torres nodded. "We've been fighting their scouts for 2 years. Small engagements, probing attacks, learning their weaknesses while keeping them from establishing forward bases." The revelation was staggering. While the Council had been complaining about human aggression, humanity had been fighting a secret war to protect everyone. Their excessive military buildup had been preparation for exactly this moment. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mordun asked. "We tried," Torres replied simply. "You didn't want to listen." Over the following days, as the galaxy began to assess the damage from the Vanguard crisis, the full scope of human preparation became clear. Secret shipyards had been building warships for 3 years. Research stations had been developing exotic weapons technology. Military bases had been established in the void between stars, creating a defensive network that spanned the galaxy. Humanity had built an entire shadow military infrastructure while officially withdrawing from galactic affairs. They had done it quietly, efficiently, and without asking for help or recognition. Most importantly, they had done it for everyone. "We could have just protected human space," Admiral Torres explained to a gathering of council leaders. "Built a wall around our territory and let the rest of the galaxy burn. But that's not who we are." "Then who are you?" asked the Altarian. Delegate, her blue skin pale with exhaustion and shame. Torres considered the question seriously. "We're the people who stand between darkness and light. We're the ones who fight, so others don't have to. We're the species that looks at impossible odds and decides to try anyway." He gestured toward the tactical display, which still showed the aftermath of the great battle. "You called us violent. You said we were too aggressive. You worried that we would start wars." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we don't start wars. We end them." The truth was undeniable. For 50 years, humanity had been the galaxy's guardian. Their presence had prevented countless conflicts. Their strength had deterred aggression. Their willingness to fight had kept the peace. The Council had never understood that sometimes peace required the threat of violence. Sometimes safety required people willing to be dangerous on behalf of those who couldn't be dangerous themselves. "What happens now?" Chancellor Morden asked. Torres looked out at the stars, where human ships were already resuming their patrol routes. "Now we go back to work. The Vanguard are gone, but there are always threats in the darkness. Pirates to chase away, empires to keep honest, disasters to prevent. Will you rejoin the Council?" "That's not our decision to make," Torres replied. "We never wanted to leave in the first place. We wanted to be partners, not subjects, allies, not problems to be managed." The conversation that followed lasted for days. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to discuss humanity's place in the galactic community. The debates were long and sometimes heated, but the conclusion was inevitable. The galaxy needed its guardians. New treaties were signed. New agreements were reached. Humanity would rejoin the galactic community, but as equals rather than subjects. Their military would be expanded rather than restricted. Their exploration would be encouraged rather than limited. Most importantly, when humans warned about dangers in the darkness, the galaxy would listen. Dr. Veltar published his final report on the Vanguard crisis 6 months later. His conclusions were simple and stark. Galactic civilization had survived because one species had been willing to stand guard in the darkness, while everyone else slept peacefully. "We owe our existence to the people we tried hardest to get rid of," he wrote. "They saved us from threats we never saw coming. They protected us from dangers we couldn't imagine. They fought wars we didn't even know were happening." The humans asked nothing in return except the freedom to be themselves. We denied them even that. Yet when the darkness came, they stood between it and the light anyway. We called them violent. They called it vigilance. We called them aggressive. They called it prevention. We called them dangerous. They called it necessary. In the end, we learned that the most peaceful civilization is one protected by those willing to be violent on their behalf. The safest galaxy is one guarded by people who understand that some threats can only be stopped by force. Humanity didn't save us despite their nature. They saved us because of it. The report was distributed to every world in Council space. It became required reading in diplomatic schools across the galaxy. The lessons were simple but profound. Sometimes the people you want to get rid of are exactly the people you need the most. In the depths of space, human ships resumed their eternal patrol. They